Napoleon Bonaparte. He has been widely immortalized by the immense glorification and the abomination by many of us. While he was very rightly perceived as the most controversial dictator in the history of humanity, some view him in the light of a benevolent dictator who ended the French Revolutionary Wars. Nevertheless, he was also accredited and endorsed as a militaristic warmonger powered by an insatiable hunger of power. With many opinion against it, saying it to be absurd and inane, for Europe was already on war and he had just countered the attacks made on France and his empire. However, recently he is deemed to be one of the greatest general. Before giving an abusive tirade to him and blithely ignoring a part of it, we need to closely analyze his regime. We do have a dossier of facts and figures, history and timeline of his period. While studying Napoleon in long and short of it, it is necessary to know Napoleon's life is bounded by three islands: Corsica, Elba, St. Helena. Underneath these there was the great Napoleonic Empire all over France, Iberian Peninsula and almost the whole of Europe. Napoleon was one of the most finest general, and his tactics and strategies were largely influenced by Alexander, Julius Caesar and Hannibal. During his 20 years of military career he fought approximately 70 battles, only losing 8 of them. His first military success came in Siege of Toulon, and there followed by a series of numerous wars. When Napoleon returned to France after a successful battle in Egypt, the directory system of administration that was ruling France was on the verge of decline. Napoleon took advantage of these and he led a successful coup attempt. He grabbed the political power of France in November 9-10, 1799, thus culminating the French Revolution and beginning of the Napoleon dictatorship. He established the consulate system and became the first consul for 10 years. By the Constitution of the Year 8 adopted on December 24, 1799, French only remained a republic in written constitution. Napoleon became the head of France, the embodiment of might and majesty of France. After the Treaty of Amiens signed by two rival nations of England and France in March 1802, temporary peace was preserved in Europe. In 1802, the same year, a new plebiscite came out receiving support from millions of French people to make Napoleon the consul for his whole life, thus establishing dictatorship in France. By this time the Code Napoleon came into force, which laid the foundation of modern-day civil laws of France and even Germany. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Napoleon established the University of France in 1804, which had 17 branches all over the great territory of France. He also established the Bank of France in 1800, and made the trade restrictions much lenient. He made tax system simple, and unlike the previous tax system during Bourbon dynasty, the tax was made direct. In May 1804, Napoleon became the Emperor of France and later of Italy. He was crowned officially in presence of Pope Pius VII at Notre Dame de Paris. He made France the superpower in Europe and the contemporary world. By the time in May 1803, defying the Treaty of Amiens, England waged into war with France. In response to the naval blockade imposed on France by England, Napoleon came up with his infamous continental system, which is an amalgam of Berlin Decree and Milan Decree. The continental system proved disastrous for Napoleon as he waged war with Spain and Portugal, where nationalism triumphed and France lost. The Moscow expedition was also a failure, which constituted to the decline of the great Napoleonic Empire. Napoleon successfully won the Third and the Fourth Coalition formed against France. The War of Fifth Coalition broke out when Portugal refused to accept the continental system, and thus these was beginning of the Peninsular War in the Iberian Peninsula. But the Spanish also ruined him really. Joseph Bonaparte, the brother of Napoleon, became the King of Spain. Later he was forced to abdicate after Battle of Vittoria. Russia's withdrawal from the continental system forced Napoleon to wage war against Russia, which ended in smoke. There began the War of Sixth Coalition, where Napoleon lost and was forced to abdicate. He was exiled in Elba in 1814. And the Bourbon dynasty was re-established in France. Within few months Napoleon gathered few hundred men and returned to mainland France, had overthrown the weak monarch Louis XVIII, the brother of guillotined King Louis XVI of Bourbon dynasty. Napoleon ruled for a period of 100 days, which is known as the 100 Days of Napoleon in 1815. During the Seventh Coalition against France, Napoleon's policy of keeping enemy divided failed when Prussian and the English army attacked French army unitedly. Napoleon returned to France and later he abdicated on June 22 and officially surrendered to the English on July 15, when he was sent to exile at St. Helena where he died on May 5, 1821. With the defeat of Napoleon, again the English became the superpower in Europe and began colonizing Asia and Africa. Another thing is that Napoleon emancipated Jews and Protestants in his empire and expanded their right of worship. He made no religious barriers and made right of worship a basic human right. He said that to him Jews are same as any other citizen of the country. And that only weak pursue a section of people and it takes strength to assimilate them. Even the Russian Orthodox Church formally declared him Antichrist. It is just a person's own thought to view Napoleon as a megalomaniac, but to a wider sense he reshaped the modern Europe.